This is Fedora 27 with the Xfce desktop, as I've installed it on my internal drive as my working Linux distribution. I made a video about this distribution a couple of months ago, and it was still fairly new, and I had it installed on an external drive. I posted a link to the previous video in the notes below this one. However, I wanted to try it in daily use on my internal drive, so when it was about 3 months old, I installed it in place of MX17, which I had been using up to now. I must say that this is not a negative comment about MX17 because that worked beautifully. It's just that I was curious about how Fedora 27 would work in daily use, and so far it's worked well also. As before, I installed the RPM Fusion repositories and I configured the desktop the way I like it. In this case, I borrowed the background from Google Images. I want to mention a few things. First, all of my printers and scanners work perfectly with Fedora 27, even the one that did not work with Ubuntu 17.10. In spite of the fact that I have the latest version of the sane backends installed. The difference is that Fedora 27 uses a stable version of the sane backends, and Ubuntu 17.10 uses an experimental version. Now, as before, the Xfce version came with AbiWord and GNumeric, and I've installed LibreOffice 6, and I got rid of AbiWord and GNumeric. However, it wasn't quite as simple as that. I did download the tar.gz package for LibreOffice 6 RPM, and I extracted it. But when I first tried to install it, I found that there was a missing directory and it wouldn't install without that directory. So I first had to install LibreOffice 5.4 from the Fedora repositories and then install LibreOffice 6. Now, the version that was in the repositories was originally 5.4.2.2, fairly up to date, and in a subsequent update it was upgraded to version 5.4.5.1. But I needed that to install LibreOffice 6, and once I installed LibreOffice 6, I got rid of it. I'm not going to do this again, but the way to do this is to go to the extracted folder, which is here, point to the RPMs folder and right-click, in this case on the Thunar file manager, and click on Open Terminal here. Then you have to make yourself root, so I typed su, su, pressed enter, and then entered my password. And then this was similar to installing the deb files, but the syntax in the command line is slightly different for Fedora. I typed rpm space hyphen I space asterisk dot rpm. Now, I'm not going to actually execute this command because I've already done it. But this is what it took to install LibreOffice 6. Otherwise, everything is quite up to date. I noted in my earlier video that I was surprised that MuseScore was version 2.03 in the Fedora repositories, because they're usually very up to date. But since then, it has upgraded to version 2.1. and Kdenlive is version 17.12. As far as the kernel version, you namespace -a. It's now 4.14.18. When I originally downloaded this, it was 4.13.9. Then it was upgraded to 4.14.16, and now to 4.14.18 in a relatively short space of time. And with Fedora, when you first boot up, if the new kernel version isn't working, you still have the option of loading with one of the older versions. But I haven't had any problems. In short, Fedora 27 is working perfectly on my internal drive, does everything I want. I haven't had any problems, and the software is just about the most up-to-date available, perhaps slightly less up-to-date than you might get from an Arch-based distribution, but also probably a little more stable than that. Now, is this for the new user? Perhaps not. It depends on just how much the new user already knows. It probably takes a little bit of experience with Linux to make Fedora usable for your purposes. My first experience with Fedora was with version 17, which was released about 3 years after I first started using Linux. Up till then, I had been using Ubuntu and Linux Mint, and it took a little while to get used to it. But then, as now, I was able to get it to do everything I wanted. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.